This episode of Two Girls One Pod discusses drug use and suicide. If you or someone you know are struggling or need help, call Lifeline on 13 11 14.
Welcome to Two Girls One Pod. Oh, this is a great episode. I absolutely have so much time for her. And you'll hear that in this episode. Constance Hall, famously a mummy blogger when blogging was first out. And what she's done with her platform is, for me, nothing but to be admired. Because she has a really good heart and she comes from a really good place. But more than any of that, her honesty, I don't think she can lie. I think she'd be her worst critic if she did. And the strength that she's gone through with trolling and to still be who she is inspiring. So you'll hear all of that. I hope you enjoy. I'm really glad to call her a friend. So here's Constance Hall. Hi!
Hi, Yvie, finally.
We tried to do this yesterday. It didn't work, so we're back today. I really wish that we'd gotten that conversation that we had yesterday back, but it's a bit odd to repeat ourselves because we're not actresses, are we? But no. What I did say to you, Constance, straight away was the first time I ever saw you was when I was obsessed with Big Brother, and what season were you on?
Season 5, 2005.
See, that seemed for me a lot earlier than 5. But
yeah, right.
I remember seeing you and my flatmate didn't want to watch, but I said, when you live with me, you have to watch Big Brother. And she got on board. As soon as she saw you, she called out, "Oh my God, I know her. I know her." And we then tried to go through how the hell do we know, you two know each other. You were a hairdresser. She used to be the door bitch at Prince Band Room and used to frequent there. So AJ,
was she a model?
No.
Because I think that a lot of modelling stuff or people that I knew that came into my salon and had their hair done worked at Prince of Wales anyway. She probably knew me as a really drunk. I used to go from downstairs Prince of Wales. They had dollar pots on Monday nights, and then it was segregated. It was like old man pub and gay and lesbian pub. And so I would be like, old man, gay and lesbian, just having the time of my life while the cool kids were upstairs listening to house.
Well, she would have been like that as well.
Do you know what I did recently, Yvie? I went to the Ministry of Ceremonies? Outside in Kings Park, and it was, do you know what? It was the best thing I've ever done. I looked around and I was like, I am so proud to be from my generation because these people, they're just looking at the sky and they're just dancing and everyone's on mushies, but it's cool. It's not like hippie. I've never really classified myself as a hippie because I just don't love that scene. So she should do that.
And drugs were good back then as well. There was no drugs really awful, harsh drugs that were killing people like they do these days.
True. Yeah,
it was just a lot of love drugs around.
It was exactly right, and it was almost like if you hadn't been in that, you didn't know.
You didn't get it.
What you weren't living. Yeah, you didn't get. I couldn't talk to you.
It would have been lovely to have been around the 60s and the early 70s where LSD was really being used and people were really Woodstock times. Imagine.
Yeah.
We are so lucky to have been around the time we are.
And I think it's really good to explain that to our kids as well because my kids now think that I am a millennial and that's become the biggest shade you could throw at someone. And I'm like, guys, when I was young, I thought that the old people were the old people too.
Yes.
But they were the people that did Woodstock. They were the people that changed so much. And how cool were they? I couldn't see it because I was looking with your lens at them. And that's what you're going to feel like an idiot one day when you realise your mum's a legend.
You're going to realise how old you are one day when you don't really understand the music your kids are listening to because it's not nearly as good as the music you used to listen to.
But until your kids steal your music.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
And not only that, the music that they did like when we were kids were the music that were covers, the same as the kids now. They'll be banging out something and we're like, that's Fleetwood Mac. And they're like, no, it's not. It's Bibbly Bop.
Oh,
and
my God, I know.
No, they're sampling Fleetwood freaking Mac.
Yeah, my kids, my daughter has a rule that she won't wear a band tee, and that's sort of all of our wardrobes are, unless she knows the band.
Oh, good.
And I think that's really cool because I'm like, you cannot rock the Doors if you do not know who Jim Morrison is.
Exactly. Okay, so that was back then, and we
Yes.
only saw you
I
for
was
5
21.
friggin' minutes because you were removed from the house
Yep.
for lying that you had a relationship. They set you up. You and that other guy, they set you up. They let you
guys.
go all of that way and into the house, and then you started talking. They obviously knew that you would have had relationships.
Right, like I brought a guy in with me to
to
lockdown
lockdown.
for the
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously they saw the drama and capitalised on it, but they
Yeah.
wanted that. I guess they thought sex sells, and they wanted sex and they wanted relationships. The previous years, the things that had been little sparkling fledgling relationships had gained viewers. So, but at the end of the day, I wasn't attracted to anyone that was in the house anyway. So even if I was single,
you may have been, because there's always intruders and things like that.
I think I might have been. I think you're right. And also you go through a strange thing in houses and as you would know from celebrity, where when you come out, you feel like no one else understands. It's a bit of a
you've
trauma,
been through. Yeah.
To throw that word around.
Trauma
but
bonding.
It's like,
You have that.
Yeah, that's right.
Experience
And
bonding.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you miss them. And there was this guy Nelson who was on it with me.
Oh, yeah.
And he
was the one that asked for a
had-
car. Am I still going to get my car?
Yes. And he's also the one that, like, even the first night that we went on, he said that he went in and you had to give them feedback. And he said, nah, hate her, hate him, hate her, hate him. And he said, and then Big Brother said, Constance, he said, love her. He said, she's so natural. I didn't hear that, but he had my back the whole time. And when I lost my nose ring, Nelson went and, charged at Big Brother for it and said, you need to get her another one. He was always, and when I lost my luggage, he went and said, because they took my luggage away, take mine. She's a girl. She needs her luggage. Oh, so beautiful. And so with him, our friendship was always platonic. He had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend. But when I came out, I found myself getting less attracted to my boyfriend, who was doing things that were like jeopardizing me. Like, I didn't know at the time, but he did cheat on me when I was in the house with someone else's lockdown partner. I know. Welcome to 21-year-old relationships.
Yeah.
But he also wasn't doing the publicity that people wanted, which would pay us, and I was like supporting us at the time. And that was starting to really turn me off. Whereas Nelson flew down to do the publicity for me because my boyfriend wouldn't, stayed in the same hotel room, nothing ever happened. But I remember lying there thinking, I so wish he would touch me right now.
Wow.
So you're right. Something could have happened. Now I couldn't think of anything worse than touching him.
Yeah. Do you still know him?
Yes, I still love him very much.
I
And
love
he
that.
loves my husband and sends my husband CDs of, John Frusciante that they both love. And yeah, he's still
What's
still
he
like a
doing
brother.
with his life?
He's got a son.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he went through a stage of really regretting the way that he behaved on Big Brother.
A lot of people that do go on TV, they see themselves and go, ooh, like the ones, there are certain
Absolutely.
ones that double down and just go, nah, get like we had Erin Barnett on our show and she was on Love Island and she was a nightmare on Love Island. And admittedly so, she said when she saw herself, because it was a relationship show and she went psycho, like stay away from my man, I'll kill you kind of thing. She got to see herself do that. But she was 21. She was so young. They really do prey on the age group of people's
'cause we
immaturity.
were all so stupid.
Yeah, everyone
at
was
that
like that at
age.
21.
Yeah,
you didn't know how
it's
to love.
really
You didn't know
unfair.
how to accept. You didn't know how to be loved. Like
And
none
you
of
weren't
that.
nice to other women. You were
No.
really mean to them. It takes a
Exactly.
long time to learn that.
Exactly. You didn't realise that, the patriarch was pitching us against each other.
Yes,
That,
yes, you
and these
couldn't see
TV
through
shows
it.
are exactly that. They will
Yeah.
pit you against each
Yeah.
other and
Well,
make
they
you.
only want people in that will fall for that. So when I was on Big Brother, the auditions were live, and I have this ability. The more bored I get, the more funny I get.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? I get deliriously bored, and then I just start getting funny and making shit up. And
Same.
So everyone that had ever worked
We should
with
be
me
bored
was like-
together
We really
sometime.
should. We should do our
Have
own
our
Big
own
Brother called
reality
Big
show.
Sister.
Just take everything away from us and watch us create our own content.
Yes, right. And
Yep.
it might be 15 hours of filming for 5 minutes of juice. But
Yes.
you get
Well, do you know what, Con? That when I was in the jungle, I came second, and I've told this to plenty of people, but
Wow.
it is a very interesting thing because we had a lot of performers, like, everyone's a celebrity in there, and we had a lot of people that were constantly on, and they would drive us insane. And there was afterwards, Angie and I from Gogglebox went in together, and we were then competing as separates, but afterwards, because I came second, she had a lot of the other campmates say to her that they really resented that I went as far as I did because I slept so much of the time. And when I went to the Logies, I met Bev McGarvey, who is the head of entertainment there at Channel 10, and she said to me, can I tell you that there was the first week you almost went because you were not doing or saying much, but then you said something that was just a grab, like something we could use, something that was really entertaining. It was, I can't remember what it was. She said, but after that, we realised that you could sleep for 23 hours and you'd be awake for 1 hour, and all we needed was 15 minutes from you. You'd always deliver. Whereas the
God, that's
others
amazing.
who were awake all the time and they were just, nothing was as entertaining. Like I would rest to be awake and go, woohoo, and then I'm out again. So it's a good
I'm surprised
TV.
there's no rules on how much you can sleep.
Well, yeah, there is in Big Brother, isn't there? Like there is now.
I can't
Apparently there
remember.
used to be, you used to be able to sleep, and there was a girl called Claire, I remember this because it was Chrissy and Reggie's season, and she just slept. She used it as a time to catch up on her Zeds, and it was hilarious. And then after that, they were like, you're not allowed to sleep. And anyone that was sleeping, you'd get Big Brother saying, wake up. So no, we had a bit of that, but there wasn't anything else to do. And they just let me sleep anyway because they had other people doing things. But that's a good producer who knows that you can let that person sleep or not do anything and then deliver. As long as they're delivering, who cares?
That's what it's about, isn't it?
That's TV, baby.
So the other people resented you for getting through so much when you'd slept so much.
It took her a while to tell me that as well, like to say, oh, they're not happy. They're not happy. And it got to the point, because every season you've got 4 absolutes where they have to fill these roles. A comedian. There has to be a comedian. Yes. There has to be a cook, so someone that can cook, a chef, celebrity chef. There has to be a reality person, and there has to be like a name, a real name, like a name that...
Like the Kerry or the Kerry-Ann,
like someone that will really bring... And
someone
the rest,
that gets paid 10 times what everyone else gets paid.
It gets paid 10... Like they get the lion's share of the money and everyone else gets, tippence. And... our comedian was a guy called Tahir, and he was from Fat Pizza and, Housos and all those shows on SBS. He still is such a beautiful, beautiful man. And I went and watched his stand-up afterwards, and he did a bit on me. He said, but I'm a celebrity, as you all know, and he said the really interesting thing is that the woman that came second, Yvie, and she's in the audience tonight, he said she slept probably 20 hours of a 24-hour period. And he said, and she came second. He said it's proof that you really can sleep your way to the top. So that was his bit, which I was like, I'll take it.
Denzi does that too.
Yeah.
If anyone could sleep their way to the top, it'd be my husband. You guys would have been a couple.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. That's why I often think because I've got chronic fatigue syndrome, if I met someone else that had it,
it's really bad, Yvie. You couldn't do that.
No, I'd have to have someone that's functional.
Yeah, you need someone who has a high energy level so that their energy actually drags you up, because I'm a high energy person, but since being with Dens, I've found that my energy has been sucked down, and now I resent him whenever he sleeps because I feel like I'm tired, but I'm not tired. He's like, well, then you have a sleep. But I refuse for us both to sleep at once because that feels like Darrow's. And so I don't know why. Like, I think I have issues. I had an unusual childhood.
That's something you have to deal because a sleep together is beautiful. I love a nap.
During the day, no.
Well,
you know what? My mum had a boyfriend once and he was a heroin addict, which my parents were, but he would actually get off his face around me, whereas my parents wouldn't. I mean, maybe my dad would be quite drugged at the end of the night, but this guy would literally leave me by myself while he would sleep all day. So I think that's why if I didn't have kids and we were just a young couple, we could have a nap together. But not even a 15-minute if the kids are home, and either way, you get up because you sleep too much and it's my turn. And I do feel that there is that.
Well, that would be very
suction.
triggering. Like that's a real event that's happened. I mean, it's funny because I've never actually said this to anyone, but I don't drink. And I think I've realised now, because I have not drunk for quite a while, for all sorts of reasons, but mostly because my perimenopause, it makes me feel really nauseous. But for years I gave it a good nudge, good decades, as you do. I'm Australian, and I would go binge drinking every weekend. But I realised I'm really frightened around drunk people. I feel really unsafe around people who are really drunk. I'm fine with other things. But I wonder if that was a...
Did you have any addict parents?
No, I didn't. And I think that may have worked in the opposite, where I didn't have any parent ever not completely lucid. Like, they were always present and sober. Like, they weren't into anything. So I wonder if that was just such a new thing for me to see, that it made me feel really like, I don't know if you're going to hurt me or not.
It's the fear of the unknown. It's that unpredictability.
So tell me about your parents.
So my mum was 18 when she had my sister, and her mum died when she was 18, leaving her 3 young boys.
Oh, wow.
And a young sister who didn't live with her. But so when I say young, mum was 18 and the boys were early teens.
Yeah.
And so then my mum met my dad before her mum died. My dad came over from Melbourne and he had like 10 siblings, and mum was like, look, my mum's dying and I'm going to be taking these kids on. And my dad was like, can bring it. That sounds amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So they got married, and then they had my sister, and then 3 years later they had me. And in that time, I think my mum started using drugs when she was like 16 maybe.
Right.
I personally don't have any memories. My mum's super functioning, and she was always an incredible parent. I'm a huge advocate for addicts being able to parent, especially if they're functioning addicts, and society supporting that rather than they should have their kids taken off them because of my experience. Yeah. And then my dad moved to Melbourne when I was 6 months old. And then I think they were both on methadone for like 20 years or something. But I do, like, obviously there were periods of times where there was different boyfriends and there was different, things that I'd find at my dad's house. But apart from that, in general, like, they were fairly, normal, apart from the fact that they had very strong sort of political beliefs, very strong left-wing family. And my dad was an artist, an art teacher. We never had much cash, but very proud people. Yeah. So no, I think I had an incredible upbringing, and I was really, really lucky. But I also witnessed a lot, and things that didn't really f me up the way that people think, kids would be up. Yeah. Like, my mum had lots of different boyfriends, and some of them weren't so nice. Others were awesome. And if anything, the only thing that ever me up, I think, was my sister moving to Melbourne, because she didn't tell me she was moving. We were there for 6 months to go to school, and then when I came home alone, and I think that upset me a lot. But apart from that, I really admire, now that I'm older and I have kids, I really admire everything that my mum did, with me. And she was 21 when she had me, and I was in dance lessons, piano, singing, guitar. Whenever I decided I needed to do a new thing, now I look at, and at the time I was just like, come on, Mum. But now I look back and I go, you're working 5 days a week. Wow. You're struggling to pay the rent. You're getting up on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. to take me to my new, phase. And she just continued to do it. And it was just never questioned. Like, dinner was always there at a certain time. Yeah. Well, I'm not as good a mum as my mum, and I'm not addicted to anything.
Yeah. But that, that is such a great point. High-functioning addicts, often they get through life being a high-functioning addict because they're good at it, and they're using drugs like anyone or whatever you're using as an addict to numb, to get you through whatever you're getting through. So, having her mother die and then leave her 3 teenage. So she was raising 4 children and then a 5th child at such a young age. Drugs would have been so fucking needed. I'm sorry.
And also, like,
that
having
would have got her through so many things.
100%. But being able to come off drugs with that much pressure is never really going to happen. You actually need someone to come along and say, I'm going to take over all of your responsibilities so that you can just focus on that. And if people, especially parents, don't get that opportunity, then they need to either be on a great program with amazing supportive people or do what they need to do to get by, because otherwise you're actually going to be putting everyone in harm's way if you try and be that hard on yourself. Heroin's a very different drug to a lot of the drugs that you see these days, like meth and all that stuff. Different. Heroin has, it's a physical dependency. Yes. And it actually, like, I had heroin addict friends when I was 14 and I never realised until I met Denham what those kids went through. When Denham would explain to me, it's not just a physical, it's a mental thing. You feel scared, you feel terrified, you feel like anxious, like something's about to happen, the house is about to blow up, but you don't understand what it is, and you cannot shake that feeling. And that can last 6 months after you've had a few months on heroin. And so I think back about those children and how, like, they didn't have any ability to, their parents were quite rich. This was in a, like, little Richie sort of area. They went to private schools, and then their parents would have just been like, you're terrible, you're naughty, how could you have done this? And not knowing your kid is living hell, and he has to do this every day now, and there's no one to support him doing it.
Oh, God. And there's so much education like that is so freaking needed, and empathy and compassion for the reasons why we start using anything, and the different types of drugs that we take and use, including alcohol, prescription medication. I mean, my God, morphine, codeine, all of these types of opiates that are just like heroin. I mean, they're just a type of heroin.
And it's funny because it's also socially accepted.
No, that's it.
You have just as many problems, you know?
Exactly.
Trying to come off that.
Oh, my God. Coming off any kind of like opiate is just, and that zombie drug that I keep seeing kids in America on a.
Yeah.
What is
that?
What is that?
I see that too.
Drug?
And my kids were telling me about it, and I was like, oh my God, stop believing this shit you see on TikTok. But then I saw it, and they're like bent over.
Xylazine, also known as trank. Ketamine.
No, it can't be trank. It can't be ketamine.
A type of ketamine.
I've had ketamine loads of times.
But it's probably a type. Like, it's probably ketamine that was, originally used for horses. Not the ketamine we get, which, when people go, it's a horse tranquilizer, we're like, well, we can't be taking horse tranquilizer in that kind of form because that would kill us. And that maybe is what it is. Like, it's killing.
Yeah, potentially.
People are getting it undiluted, uncut, who knows?
They talk about weird drugs on TikTok, though. Like, when you watch those people on the streets, they go, like, how long you been on the blues, the whites, the J's, the Z's, and I don't ever know anything that they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a completely different currency over there. Yeah,
it's a language, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever it is, it looks gnarly, though. Flesh eating. Have you seen those ones? Like flesh eating.
Yes.
Yeah, big holes in their skin that just keep growing.
And the mug shots where they go them through the years of being arrested and having the different mug shots as the drugs take hold, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, but you can see even with medications, like they dry your skin out so much.
Yes.
And it's a very quick downfall, I think.
Yes.
Mind you, I know a couple of like methamphetamine addicts that have been on it for so long, and I just think to myself, you're going to live forever. Have you pickled yourself or something?
Well, there's different constitutions. And that's why some people can be an addict, a functioning addict on a particular drug.
So true.
That 99% of the people don't do well on.
Yes.
Everyone's constitution is different. I know people that can drink and drink and drink and drink. And I'm like, that would have killed me 2 decades ago. Like the way you can back it up every day, get up, go to work and still drink the way you can. So I guess, I've always thought, like, I just call those people machines because I'm like, you're a machine. Like, I don't know how you do it.
This is what I tell my children because they're like, I don't like weed. I never did.
Yeah.
It gave me really bad anxiety, like a dissociative anxiety when I was a teenager. And so, my kids, my daughter's like, Mum, you're the only one that gets that. Like everyone I talk to, all of my friends, and I'm like, dude, it is not about what other people's experience is. I personally have never had acid because of that, because of the weed, the dissociative feeling. And I know when I was at one of Denham's friends' parties called Wasstock, and it was like a Woodstock, and everyone was on acid and everyone was just laughing and having the best time. So I've gone up to the guy whose party it was, and he had all the acid, and I was like, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should take it? I really want to take it. It sounds really, looks really fun. And he was like, no, don't take it because you look at your little brain. It's already going around in laps.
Lucky you had that guy.
Yeah, and that was exactly right. Like I try and say that to my children. Even weed, it's so much more dangerous than you think, And I'm pretty lucky because we do have drug addicts in my family that have lost everything, and they live on the outskirts because they steal and you always invite them back in, but they always end up and you just look at their life. Yeah. Even Denham had a business that was turning over $1.2 million a year before his final relapse before I met him and he got sober and then I met him. But I said that these are people that have lost everything. Den's owned 2 houses. Like, he was living in a bus when we met him, you know?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's the
but that was sort of by choice. He kind of chose. He's a total
that sounds
hippie at heart,
cool.
so...
That sounds great. But yeah,
so he did that. But it's a good way to be able to show the kids that, like, I get really angry when people glamorise drugs in front of my kids. And I have had it happen. Someone my age, you know how me and you can talk about the ease of our time and how good they were. I don't say that to my children.
Yeah.
And I had a friend talk like that, and my kid told me, and I was like, I know you think I'm all relaxed with, you know, education around drugs, but I've got a system, and that system is really bloody strong.
Yeah.
And for as long as I can while they're young, I don't want any positive. Like, we talk a lot about it, but nothing about how amazing it is.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I like the reality of it because everyone does react differently to drugs. And I grew up on a beach, so it was a beach coastal lifestyle. So everyone smoked bongs and everyone surfed. So I tried to get right into that lifestyle. It really didn't suit me. I wasn't great. But everyone used to smoke hash. So it was a very different, numbing drug. But once I found, a little bit of easy pot, I was like, oh, this is much more fun and like being able to smoke, like having to smoke an entire, like all of that whole cone, like all of it. But I do remember when I was in high school, we all had to do for science, we had to choose a drug and do our essay on it. And I was the only one. Everyone chose hard drugs and we all had to present at the end. And I was the only one that chose marijuana. And I learned so much in year 9 about marijuana and what it could do, like how it could trigger schizophrenia and all of these things. And I learned about THC and I learned about all of these, how people get really skinny after they've been smoking marijuana for a really long time and their fat cells have been replaced with the oil of THC, and how once you've given up marijuana, it's the THC stays in your fat cells for a really long time. And if you go for a run, I remember presenting this to class, and if you go for a run or a surf or something like that, the THC is released just like a fat cell releases the fat, and you get stoned for free. I remember telling everyone that. So all the boys tried to go off their pot for a little bit so they could get stoned for free. But anyway.
That's interesting because when I was 12, we stole some hydros. We stole hydros off my friend's big brother, and we all sat around, or the 3 of us or something, pulling bongs. And when you're like drinking spirits as a kid, you don't know how much, you didn't realise. Yeah, so we did that, and that's when I had my first disassociative, like, I don't know where I am. I could hear my voice as a narrative talking to me. I wasn't connected to the world anymore. I didn't really know where I was. I had to tell myself. It was awful. So I went home and said to Mum, I pulled a bong of hydros. And Mum's like, oh, my God, what's wrong with you? So she's really good, though. My mum was perfect. She goes, sleep in my bed because that way you can hear me and Scott talking in the background. It's really nice to know that things are happening in the background. You won't be alone with your thoughts.
That's the best person to have told.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And so that kind of went away. But then a week later, I'm at school and I'm walking through the corridor. No, hadn't touched it again. And it all just came back. Wow. And so then I spoke to Mum, and then it started coming back every time I was anxious, if I was like one-on-one with someone. And I had to go home. I had to go home every time and go to sleep because I couldn't even catch a tram or train, do you know what I mean? I couldn't find it. It was like people would wave at me and I'd be staring at them like, who are you? I heard Post Malone recently talking about it. He had the same thing. Like, it's like a reaction and it happens. But the doctors thought it might be epilepsy or something. Oh. They were like, doing all these other tests. But I knew that it was from that. And it wasn't a free high, though. Yeah. It was bizarre.
Yeah,
it was bizarre.
It was like a zap back or something, I think. So there's something like that. But these are the kind of conversations that we need to be having and saying to people that drugs and alcohol, they really do affect everyone very differently. You did a wonderful TED Talk in 2019. And it started so beautifully. I love how you just read out these remarks that were made, comments that were made about you.
Constance Hall is a gutter trash hippie who deserves to die. Constance Hall looks like a walking venereal disease. You can smell Constance Hall half an hour before you see her. Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Constance Hall.
I thought that was hilarious. And it's really such a beautiful setup for what you went on to say. It was only a 20-minute talk and it was just so incredibly wonderful. But tell us a bit about what that TED Talk entailed and why you ended up doing that.
So I did that because I rose to sort of, got all my followers in 2016 and I could feel it happening from the very beginning. It was like bubbling. I was rising too quick. I was getting 5,000 followers a day and I knew, and that was January, the first time I went viral. Like I got, I think 100,000 followers overnight. I had 2,000 followers for the last 3 months.
Yep.
And it was slowly growing and I was really proud of that, really happy with that. I'd always blogged, but I'd blogged on websites like Blogspot and blah, blah, blah. And, but then setting my own Facebook page, that gave me all this reach. And so then January, I went viral. The media had picked up stories that I'd written before, but they'd never bothered using my name, whereas this one was like, so who is Constance Hall? Do you know what I mean? And it was becoming more about me rather than about an article that you saw on Facebook. And then it just kept growing from there because I was like, oh my God, all these followers are listening to me. I have so much content. Like I have been writing for so many years and no one's listened. So I'd smash out a blog every day. And, that's that consistency that really grows your following. In the beginning, it was like cool to know who I was because no one knew. But then when everyone knew, it was cool to not know who I was or to not like me because I was almost becoming like mainstream. Do you know what I mean? There are so many reasons why I am the perfect storm for haters. Yeah. One of them being that a lot of the haters and the people who started the hate groups want to be bloggers. And they have their networks of how they can communicate with each other and they're desperate to bring anyone that sees any success down and that makes them feel better about not having succeeded. Another reason that I'm a perfect storm for haters is that I don't have a specific talent. I'm not a musician or I'm not, do you know what I mean?
Famous
I'm
for
not
being famous kind of, they think.
I'm a very normal woman who just managed to get people to want to read my stuff. So that makes people have to ask themselves, why didn't I manage to get, you don't watch John Butler play the 12-string guitar and go, him, I could do that, because you can't. Whereas you watch Constance Hall writing a blog and you go, what's so good about that when I can write something like that and no one's listening? Yeah. So they have to discredit me in some way. And then there's the other reasons of men that hate me because I'm not what they want me to be.
You're a mouthy bitch.
Like there's just, I just think it's easier to hate a really successful, as it got really big, it was just as much, if not more. Yeah, more people didn't like me, much more people didn't like me than did. And I had to stay strong because I'd wanted to write for my whole life. I'd wanted to publish books and no one was listening. No one was interested at all. Even putting my stuff on websites, it was too crass, Then when this happened, I was like, well, you have the option of hiding and going away because too many people hate you or soldiering on. So I wasn't a victim because I was choosing to soldier on, yet I was also being victimized so badly. So I couldn't really voice my complaints and no one wants to hear a white woman with a big platform complaining about basically anything. So I learned to just accept it and it was ebbs and flows. There was so much love there and so much support that the people that I'd see on the streets and stuff, I'd just make eye contact with them and they would remind me this is between me and you. It's got nothing to do with anyone else, and there's this beautiful woman and she's like, you're just bringing me into her warmth and it was heaven. And then there were the moments where I would be out to dinner and I would see, everybody kind of looking at each other and I'm like, what? This is giving me more anxiety than whatever it is. And they'd be like, oh, look, and, it's a new hate campaign or it's the posters being stuck out on the street or whatever it is. And it would make me physically sick. Like I would need to go and vomit and I could not snap out of it no matter what. And people would say to me like, Con, it's nothing like Con. And I know that because I've tried to say this to people before in my life.
There's nothing to them.
Yeah, that's right. There is nothing you can say to me right now. And then the sting that really came out of it and how I learnt to sort of heal myself with it was by going public with it and by speaking up about it. And so because when I speak up about it, so many more people and they get so much louder and they go, oh, we saw that article. We didn't even think she needed help with the people commenting bad stuff. Now we will. Now we know she needs it, so we will. Yeah. And that was huge. But I started to really dissect how we treat victims in general of bullying or of DV, of anything. And we tend to ignore them and we tend to focus all of our energy on the perpetrator, and it all becomes about accountability.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, is this really about accountability, or is this just a really fun way for you to direct some hate at someone?
Yeah.
And
Judge,
do you know what
jury,
I mean?
and executioner.
Yeah.
That's what we love to be with our accountability. We judge,
Yep.
we jury, then we kill them.
Yeah, which is unbelievable. I remember when I was young, my dad took me to a funeral of a guy called Van Nguyen. He was, I think, Vietnamese. I might be wrong.
That's
This
a
is in Melbourne.
very Vietnamese name.
And he had been executed in Singapore.
Oh.
And his body had come back. And my dad said to me, we're going to his funeral to pay our respects. And I was like, that's weird, Dad. Why? But it was because he wanted me to see that, like, this hunt for accountability and destroying lives out of punishment is, like, it's not the end goal. I'm not ever saying to, let people get away with things. I'm saying the authorities deal with that. And if we could focus our energy on the victims. I had a friend who got stabbed by somebody at the front door. He opened it. It was random. Stabbed like 8 times. He had to eat out of a bag for, a year or something. He got $70,000 in victims' compensation, which was apparently the maximum. Now, I don't know what we spent as a tax dollars on incarcerating the guy that stabbed him.
Way
But
more.
I know that we are putting all of our resources in this punishment system. My TED Talk was simply saying that energy, schools, everyone needs to put the majority of their energy into victims, because if you can't heal the victims of what they've been put through by the perpetrator, what's even the point of catching the perpetrator, if you know what I mean?
I totally agree. The family violence that's happening at the moment, they're starting to focus on, giving out money for people who are escaping family violence. But I've had DMs from women who are saying, I couldn't get it. I tried and I had to go back, because they made it too hard for me to get. And
I know. That's always the way. It is awful.
There's
It's almost
just
like
so
there needs to be an
much.
agent
Yes.
that can work and demand and be your voice. Because when you've been
Yes.
abused, you're not very good at demanding what you deserve.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's like you need a lawyer that doesn't come with a $600 an hour bill, attached to it.
Well,
There's
every
just-
single person that works at, whether it's Centrelink or social services, needs to treat every case as if their sister or their best friend works for the media, and you're going to get exposed.
Yes.
They're part of a study that the media's doing to tell, and then they might act with a bit of bloody consideration.
Yeah. Well, there's a great Instagram profile called Fix the Headline. It's mostly about domestic violence, but it's always the perpetrator gets the name or good guy, rhetoric, or the, and the woman,
course.
or has sex with. They fix the headline,
Yes.
like it's all crossed out of,
Yes.
rapist, not man, rapist, raped and killed a woman instead of had sex with. It's amazing how much the
and it's
media.
always neighbour says he was a really
Good
nice
guy.
guy.
It was such a shock.
How
Such a
can they
quiet,
say
lovely
that?
guy.
It's-
They're all
the headline
quite
should
lovely.
be, he obviously has 2 personalities like
Yeah.
most fucking psychopaths do.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. And that whole thought process is just, it's supported by our system that, by always concentrating on the perpetrator and making, I guess, treats it's like we're not allowed to use the word suicide in our media and things like that because it's so addictive. It's a really, not addictive, what's the word, contagious word?
Yeah, the copycat.
So it should be the
So
same.
I got contacted by someone because I did an article on my friend's son who took his own life at 14, and I did a blog about it. It was actually coinciding with my daughter getting bullied by some little assholes at school, and so anyway, I wrote this article about this beautiful boy Ante, and I got contacted by them. And the suicide, I don't know who, because anyone can start an organisation, can't they? So you don't really know
Yes.
if the people are, But I knew it would happen. You shouldn't talk about suicide, blah, 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 blah. But they said to me, just be careful when talking about suicide that you never angle the story as if the child did it as a solution.
Yes,
And I
yes.
thought I liked that. And I also think that it's probably a really interesting topic or something that should be shared, that even when you, like, take that female blogger that died last year. She took her own life and because she got trolled so bad. Do you think the trolls turned around and said, I wish I didn't do that?
No.
Nah.
No.
They go straight back in there and said, oh, look at that one last selfish act from the queen of selfishness. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So if everybody knew that and goes, it's not the final shut up, everyone, leave me alone, I'm gone, it is going to just get worse.
I remember
and you just
watching
need to learn.
Charlotte Dawson have a go at her trolls and, you know, shame them on a current affair or something. It was just such an awkward watch because I could see exactly what she was trying to do, what they were trying to do. And they were really shamed, these people. Like they were, you know, once they're confronted to their faces, they're obviously...
What, were they exposed, like the people that did it?
Yeah, they were like shown. Yeah. But
wow.
I don't know what happened to those. You know, I don't imagine that changed them in any way. Maybe it did, but they would have just been so ashamed that they were named and shamed. That couldn't have worked in a positive way. That's all I remember.
It pushes
thinking
them
at the
further
time.
into their dark corner.
And one of the things that you said in your TED Talk that right at the beginning was show us how to kill yourself or something like that. Someone wrote that. So if someone is writing that to people, show the world what it looks like to kill yourself, they're not going to then go, gee, I wish I hadn't written that. They're going to be like, she did it. And I told her to do that.
Exactly.
I kind of have power. Because people who have that kind of a mindset, they're not reasonable people who you can have a chat with. And I really love that you really do want to focus then on the victim because that's what it should be about. We are starting to show the names of the victims. And, you know, Martin Bryant, they made a movie about him. The whole state of Tasmania absolutely were against this movie even being made. They said, we just don't want the backstory of him. We don't want him. And it wasn't glorifying him at all. Like it wasn't.
Maybe they don't want Tassie to be known for him.
No, they don't. They just said, we just don't want anything about him because it wasn't about, it like ends with him going to Port Arthur and everything before that. I can completely see where they were coming from. But they said, we just never want to hear his name. We only want to hear the victims' names. And we are starting to move towards that where we're showing just victims' names on the front page of papers, like, you know, long victims' names and things like that. Because a lot of these people who do the perpetrators, they really do want to be known in
100%.
forever.
Yep.
As that's
a personality type, isn't it? It
yes.
is. It's a cluster B personality type, and they love attention, and they need to control. And anyone in that is close to them is in danger.
Yeah.
Because they learn to, you learn to make everything about them, and you angle everything in a narrative that's going to support their ego, and then all of a sudden they become noticed. And,
yes,
and it's everything.
Notoriety is what they want. There's nothing worse you can do to a narcissist than ignore them. Nothing worse.
Exactly.
That is the worst thing you could possibly do. I have a friend who broke up with a narcissist, and she said to me, she kept sending me the texts that the ex was sending her to, provoke. And I had just recently before that been out with a narcissist and did the same thing. And I had a lot of people say to me, why don't you just reply and say this or say that? And I'm like, because it doesn't matter what I reply, that it's the reply that is getting them off, and it doesn't matter. It's let's go it again. We're in,
and it's so you so desperately want to because it's like, how dare you?
Yes.
And that's just very similar to dealing with trolls.
Yeah.
The comments that I read out on that TED Talk, they don't get to me. They don't bother me at all because I am not a walking STD. I think we all know that. But it's the ones who sound reputable, the ones who go, there was this incident once where and this is going to sound bad, but you can't look at it through a 2023 lens. You have to remember it was 2014. And my brother and me have a really sick sense of humour. My whole family does. And so my mum, I don't do Santa. I mean, sometimes my kids like to, but I'm just not a Santa person. So my mum took my kids out to see Santa and put my kids on Santa's knee and took photos and sent it to me. And so back then I didn't have many Facebook followers. And so I just put up on my Facebook page, like my private one, not my public or anything. And I tagged my brother and I said, look, Will, it looks like Mum found a fat pedo. We used to call him a fat pedo, Santa. It looks like Mum found a fat pedo to put the kids, to chuck the kids on their lap. forgot about it because it just, it was just gone and everyone knows that's me. I've got a crook sense of humour. And then when the blog got up and all the haters were doing their thing, they found my private page and they were going through all my photos looking for something that could destroy me. And then that's when they made up this narrative that this particular Santa Claus took his own life. This man that was, you know what I mean? Like this man, they said that he worked at some supermarket. No, he worked at IKEA. They got it all wrong. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't him. And that guy, whoever they're saying didn't exist. But like that just grew like wildfire to the point that Kids Spot's on the phone to me saying we want a statement about, and I just hung up on them. I was just like, I'm not even giving them anything. And, but that bothered me. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't sleep. I was terrified.
It sounds really legit.
Yeah, exactly. And they make things up that sound legit, and it's the very same thing with the narcissists when they're sending you messages and they're, when they get really mad and they show their colours, that's great.
It finally
but
comes
before
out.
that, when they're saying to people, she's actually got mental problems. Yes, she shouldn't have her children. That's that shit gets you down.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the oxygen removal. Take the oxygen out of the room and they can't breathe.
That's what my husband made me do. He said, I'm not doing it anymore. He said, I'm not having someone else message you and ruin our whole day.
Yeah, good.
I don't want you to have any contact unless it's an email about kids or whatever. No more contact. And it did not take long before my life got 10 times better.
Okay, so when did that happen?
So I broke up with my ex-husband in 2017. It was like February and got together with Denz in March. I swear to God, everyone.
I remember that around that time it happening. Like, you found this beautiful man because the way you would, and still do, talk about your husband is just, it's divine. Like, I am not a straight white man fan. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that listens to me knows. I'm not a fan of straight white men. I'm not a fan of the patriarchy. But and people think I'm a man-hater. Not everyone. Most people know I'm not. But everyone knows that I love good men. I just love good men.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of them. Unfortunately.
That's so true. But
and
when you find one, you just love them.
And when there is, oh my God, you got to hold them close, hold them tight. And that's what a lot of people say. You'll meet someone. I'm like, I'm 51. So
you're single?
Yeah, I'm single. And I think if I've got to either wait for the death of a good woman or I don't know what else. Because if you've got a good bloke, what on earth would you do letting him go? You'd have to die.
They do it.
They do. Yeah,
because the love dies. People miss
option.
that. People want that spark.
That's the other option. But I just find that the majority of single men of my age group are single because no one wants to be with them.
Or they also have like a really like shocking view of like who they should go out with. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you've got this like old man. Yeah. He's got no job and he's like passing you his phone and showing you like the people that he's clicking on Tinder. They're like 18. And supermodels, and you're just going, mate, you'll be unhappy forever. So
and just all of that. Like, have you the amount of people, like men, who've said anything to me in comments? It's always on another post because I don't reply to anyone in the DMs because I'm like, if no one's seeing this apart from you, then why am I doing it for? I'm not giving someone a laugh. So it's always a reply to a comment that will be putting me down. And I just say, have you seen yourself? With as many laughing, screaming emojis as I can possibly put into that. And they never respond. Ever.
Oh,
ever.
God, it's so true though, isn't it? Yeah. Why do these men all think they can put us down by being like ugly or, like a pig? Yeah. And they are the most hideous looking creatures.
They're always the most hideous looking. It's like you don't own a mirror? What's happening that you don't own a mirror, mate?
I know.
What's going on in your life? So
I remember when Clem put up something once and it said, and she shared a screenshot of this guy saying to her, I hope you're happy to die alone or something like that. And I commented under and I said, yeah, because I've been to the death of a few family members right now and not once have I seen a woman sit up and go, I wish there was more men here.
Yeah, ugly and really mean ones. I really wish.
Right. Yeah, get over yourselves. We're actually okay without your approval.
Way more okay. Like that, and that's another thing is that I often say in my podcast, I give women every now and then I whisper into the microphone, it's that time. Leave your husband if you need to. This is the permission. I'm giving you the permission today. Is it today the day you're leaving your husband? Because maybe it is. Is he being an asshole? It's time. I get DMs sometimes.
Too hard.
Yeah, it is. It's
been made to be too hard. I'm still divorcing my ex-husband 7 years later.
Exactly. And they make it
not
like
fair.
that. They make
And
it
now
like
with the
that.
rental crisis, we don't know what harm that's doing in the future. We will know with parents not being able to separate. Like, I am a big leave your husband. You'll never be as happy as you will be, but that's my privilege.
But can you do it?
Because I had the privilege to do it and I waited till I did. So,
And it's still a nightmare for you.
It's still a nightmare for me. Exactly. It's still, you cannot quantify the emotional expenses.
And they
the
bring
financial.
they bring in these fundings for women, and then you can't get them. Like how?
Exactly.
What is happening? Like it really is against us, and anyone that says otherwise can.
I know so many amazing women who have just left with nothing because it was easier. And
Yes.
I'm in awe of them because
Me too.
living with kids,
Me
it's incredible.
too. So, Constance, thank you so much again for coming on.
It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure.
I
Thanks for having me.
will talk to you again really soon.
I'm sure.
If you like this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things you know. Talk to Rachael through Two Girls at Nova podcasts.com.au. And tell her how wonderful you thought this episode was. And if you have any questions or any statements or anything like that, send them through to her. And you know that I do my solo ep and I love your emails and ask me anything. So please do. Love you all. Just be there for each other. The end.